President Biden is pushing forward with his economic agenda. He says it will help the country recover from the pandemic, but it's a hard sell. Many Americans have more immediate concerns about high inflation. Consumer prices jumped more than 6% over the last year. That's the biggest rate of inflation in more than 30 years. Inflation is hitting restaurants especially hard as the food industry tries to recover from the pandemic. The price of produce and meats have jumped more than 5% since last year. Combine that with supply chain distribution issues and worker shortages, and the restaurant industry is hurting. For more, I want to bring in restaurant owner Jeff Katz. Jeff is a partner at New York Saga, Overstory, and Crown Shy Restaurants. Jeff, welcome. So how much are you noticing these price hikes for goods, and how much has it really hurt your restaurants?
I think it's just sort of interesting, almost like a comedy of errors when you combine the inflation, you combine the incredible labor shortages, the cost of labor going up as a result of that. And then, very recently we have some changes to, at least here in New York State, and sort of a federal change that's going to change how we do some of the restaurant operations, like kind of on a legal level. So it's kind of crazy. And I think the dining public is going to have to get used to a higher price in whatever restaurant at whatever level they're going to dine at.
Yeah. Jeff, what do you mean changes on a legal level?
We had a change that takes effect right at the end of this year that's going to sort of mandate that tipped employees only do 30 minutes of what we call side work, sort of preparation work, before they start their service shift. It used to be the standard was referred to as 80-20. A tipped employee needs to spend 80% of their time in service, dealing with guests, taking orders, delivering food, sort of more core items of service. And then only 20% of their time sort of getting ready for that shift, folding napkins, setting out water glasses, setting tables, et cetera. The federal government added a new sort of level to that, which is now an additional thing where you can only do 30 minutes of setup and preparation work at any given time. So whereas before you could do an hour and a half, up to 2 hours a day of that kind of work, now you have to do no more than 30 minutes before either getting into service or having some kind of a break. And for most restaurants, that's an incredible burden.
Yeah, it's very interesting too, as it goes. Oh, sorry, it goes to the dynamics that we've been seeing playing out in the service industry about workers unsatisfied with their compensation, with sort of the way that the industry has evolved over the years. I want to go ahead and give you the opportunity to finish your thought too about the solution to that, and then I also want to zoom back out a little bit about some of the bigger obstacles to recovery that you're experiencing in your restaurants.
Well, just quickly, one of the ways to deal with the new federal mandate is to actually bring on more employees to do some of this setup work, right? That's one of the suggested sort of ways to go about it. But in this labor market, finding those people to do that work is going to be, kind of impossible, right? So, and what you're looking at is restaurants fundamentally having to change the way they do some pretty core processes in their business. So, in addition to that, and this sort of speaks to where you wanted to go after, is restaurants have always had this problem, right? Where you have a dining room team collecting tips, getting paid tip rates, but making considerably more than a kitchen. And in some states, New York's one of them, the dining room team can't share the tips with the kitchen team. And so you end up with this crazy dichotomy where you'll have a person in the dining room making, 2.5, 3 times more than the person in the kitchen. And it's not a function of, working any harder or more hours. It's completely a legal problem that restaurants can't share tips with anyone but people who are in what they consider the directly tipped positions. So we need a little flexibility in this industry to sort of adjust to be able to deal with a lot of the things that are going on right now. But the law makes it a little tricky.
It's certainly interesting, too, because your restaurants being higher scale, more upscale rather, charging greater prices. Tips are based off of those prices. Your service staff may be compensated at a better rate than somebody who works at a restaurant that doesn't have those same prices. So it's a ripe discussion about how the variations in the industry and the rules that are being applied across the board might not work for workers and restaurant owners in all situations. Jeff, I'm wondering, as you're trying to navigate through these changes, labor shortages, and these supply chain shortages, what is the biggest yoke around your neck? What is the anchor that is weighing you down the most, and what does a full recovery look like for you?
I think it's for most of my peers, it's something in the labor force. There's just not enough people to work. And I'm not entirely sure when that's going to change. Labor's always been a difficult thing to deal with, but in this world, there's less people working. So all the things sort of that are sort of around labor is definitely, I think we're more the struggles are. And then you add changes like this one that just came up that's going to take effect before the end of the year. And in this environment, it's just kind of crazy. And, sometimes some of these changes start to feel a little bit, kind of almost punitive. And, I've spoken with various labor attorneys who we work with, who have said that there are, this is just going to create a whole new round of sort of lawsuits and sort of moguls for restaurants that they're going to have to learn to navigate so that they don't end up getting sued, because it's really just, it is a very specific set of rules and guidelines that came up really, really quickly that we all have to deal with in an environment where there's no people to deal with the problem. So it's just kind of an interesting time for some of these things to change.
So what do restaurants need from the government or other agencies to help get the industry back on track?
I think in this case, we need to get this one problem sort of pushed off for a bit so that we can find a way to deal with the adjustments. I think that it's kind of a complicated scenario. It's not just a federal problem. It's not just a New York State problem. There are issues that each of them would need to work on to make it better. I think that in New York City, we've got to find a way to get people to come back to work. And, it's not an easy solution. There aren't really silver bullets. But in markets like New York City, we employ so many people. Nationally, we employ so many people. We talk about the shrinking middle class. This is the middle class, right? Restaurant workers are essentially the core of that middle class. And how do we get them to be able to get back to work and want to go back to work? I think that, there's got to be a government genius out there with an idea on how to help the problem.
I'm wondering, Jeff, what does communication with your restaurant staff look like as you're navigating the troubles of the past 20 months?
It's been tricky. It's definitely been tricky. We've definitely spent more time over the last year and a half carefully considering how to deal with the changes, how to deal with talking through what the changes are going to be. During COVID, restaurants and restaurant teams, restaurant employees had to go through a lot to sort of stay afloat. And it wasn't easy. And it hasn't really gotten easier because now the restaurants are very busy. There's absolutely demand for people wanting to go out and dine and have a good time. But the supply of workforce does not necessarily meet it. And if you see in New York, and I would imagine in other markets that your classically slower nights of the week, your Sundays and your Mondays, a lot of restaurants are just closed. And it's not because there's no demand to dine. It's because there's no one to work in them. And so that really is the core of it right now. And obviously that has changed the labor market, that has changed pay rates, right? Everyone has raised their rates. Everyone has to pay their teams more to keep their teams. And that crunches the economics for the business that's already really crunchy, right? Like, restaurants 10, 15 years ago, you could have a good 15% sort of margin. Nowadays, if you're, 4 or 5%, you feel like you're in a pretty good place. So it's tricky. It's getting harder. I think it's ultimately going to get passed along to the guest, and the guest is just going to have to realize that things they used to spend 20 some odd dollars for are now going to be 30 some odd dollars. And it's just going to sort of go in that way.
All right. Well, Jeff Katz, we appreciate you coming on. We're wishing you
Thank you.
and all of your employees the very best. Jeff Katz.
Happy Thanksgiving.